a lot of us in Australia were just very pleased to hear a doctor speaking critically about some things that people weren't willing to discuss. So it's great to have critical thinkers, which we need in the scientific medical community.
It's so true, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the McCullough Foundation offices here in Richardson, Texas, in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Texas is about the size of Australia in terms of population. Australia is a bigger landmass, and John Leake, our Vice President of McCullough Foundation, and myself had a chance to visit Australia, tour the country in 2023, and we were shocked with the stories we were told about Australians and this grossly disordered groupthink that settled in among your government leaders. John and I visited Parliament in Australia. John specifically asked members of Parliament, who or what did you rely on to formulate your response to the pandemic, particularly the vaccines? The answer was, we relied on the Americans.
Completely. I was so stunned by this one senator in particular who said we completely deferred to the judgment, the evaluation of the American FDA. And I said, so you mandated that all of your people be injected by a genetic technology developed by an American company with a very long criminal and civil rap sheet. Pfizer has a very, very spotted past. And a German company in Mainz, and a company in Mainz, Germany, foreign product, foreign regulatory agent. The regulators in Australia completely deferred to this commercial enterprise and its friends in the regulatory business in America in order to mandate this. I said, I said, it's unfathomable to me that you as a legislature who are responsible for the well-being of your people would just prostrate yourself to the Americans in this matter. I still don't understand it. What happened to Australia? I mean, that's a subject for an interview unto itself. What happened?
Yeah, so my view is that there is a coordinated effort, and you hear about Event 201, which is a worldwide event where they did shortly before 2019 a how do we respond to a pandemic, and it's almost like they did exactly what that event suggested across
pandemic.
The whole world. They then locked us all down, and in the state of Victoria, as you're aware, I often say we have a communist government, because really the Nuremberg Code was made so we're never forced to take a medical treatment, because they knew, especially an experimental drug, right? And yet here we are being told you cannot work, which I was one of many who lost their jobs. You cannot go and eat in a restaurant with other people if you don't take this. You cannot go to church with more than 12 people unless you're all vaccinated. You could still go to brothels, but you couldn't go to church. I thought, to me, that was astounding. I'm like, where are you going to get close contact? A brothel or a church? If this is really a medical thing, we would not have such incongruent rules forced upon us as a population. I want to give something very practical people can have. When you were in Australia, you came down with a cold and you used a formula. Can you tell our viewers what you did?
I did. I went to an Australian pharmacy. They had a wonderful mint flavored iodine in a small dropper. I added that to some water, a little packet of salt that I got from an Australian restaurant. I made a saline iodine solution, and I used that multiple times per day. I squirted up each nostril, sniffed it back, spit it out, gargled with it. And that solution helped me through a viral illness. And I can tell you, there are now a bevy of trials showing a whole array of nasal sprays and gargles worked, including those used in the hospital. And it's a tragedy that even people in the hospital were denied nasal sprays and gargles.
an astonishing thing is that our own Director of Health and Human Services in the United States in August of 2021, she had to come out and admit, Rochelle Walensky, she had to just come out and admit, well, it would seem that the vaccine does not prevent transmission and infection. But then she hastened to add, but it does reduce severity of the illness. Well, as the doctor said, I mean, this was just an assertion. There was no evidence to back this up. In other words, you're still getting it. You're still getting infected. It starts up here in the nose, and then it works its way down to the lungs. You're still getting it. And this was the remarkable thing. He has seen in his clinical practice people who received the vaccine but then got COVID multiple times.
Or very sick. I remember one guy saying, oh, thank God I got the vaccine. I was so sick. Imagine how much worse it would have been. And
Right.
I was like, I didn't get the vaccine. And when I got COVID, it was like a cold.
I think Australians would find this interesting. And you also observed how this so-called gender dysphoria that we were suddenly, in my new book, which was just published 2 days ago, Mind Viruses, you will suddenly have an irrational thought that would not have been countenanced by any reasonable person just a few years earlier, and suddenly, almost like a viral contagion, this irrational thought or belief will be rapidly and wildly embraced. So suddenly we're told that there is an epidemic of adolescent, even prepubescent children who are suffering from the belief that they're not of their biological sex. Now, a reasonable person would say, well, but I mean, they're children. They've not yet developed an identity or an awareness or an understanding of sexuality. Like, what on earth are you claiming? But our public health authorities, like the COVID-19 vaccine, rushed to embrace this fraudulent concept of gender dysphoria in minors. And so it's a topic for a whole other discussion, but I'm glad that you are engaged in this because it's yet another act of gross malfeasance.
We've concluded that we've entered a time of controversy. Excessive childhood vaccination, the autism epidemic, the transgender crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic and debacle, wars erupting all over the globe. Something is going on, and we need people like you in leadership positions worldwide. Everybody, thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much for your time.